A garments iron, likewise flat iron, smoothing iron, or basically iron, is a little machine that, when warmed, is utilized to squeeze garments to eliminate wrinkles and undesirable wrinkles. Homegrown irons by and large reach in working temperature from between 121 degrees Celsius (250 degrees Fahrenheit) to 182 degrees Celsius (360 degrees Fahrenheit). It is named for the metal, iron, of which the gadget was generally made, and its utilization is by and large called pressing, the last move toward the method involved with washing garments. Pressing works by relaxing the ties between the long chains of atoms that exist in polymer fiber materials. With the intensity and the heaviness of the pressing plate, the strands are extended and the texture keeps up with its new shape when cool. A few materials, like cotton, require the utilization of water to release the intermolecular bonds. Before the presentation of power, irons were warmed by burning, either in a fire or with some inner plan. An electric flat iron was developed by American Henry W. Seeley and licensed on June 6, 1882. It weighed very nearly 15 pounds, 6.8 kilograms, and consumed a large chunk of the day to warm. The UK Power affiliation is accounted for to have said that an electric iron with a carbon bend showed up in France in 1880, yet this is thought of as dubious. Two of the most established kinds of iron were either compartments loaded up with a consuming substance, or strong chunks of metal which could be warmed straightforwardly. Metal container loaded up with hot coals were utilized for smoothing textures in China in the 1st century BC. A later plan comprised of an iron box which could be loaded up with hot coals, which must be intermittently circulated air through by joining a howls. In the late 19th and mid-20th hundreds of years, there were many irons being used that were warmed by fills, for example, lamp oil, ethanol, whale oil, petroleum gas, carbide gas, acetylene, likewise with carbide lights, or even gas. A few houses were outfitted with an arrangement of lines for conveying petroleum gas or carbide gas to various rooms to work machines like irons, notwithstanding lights. In spite of the gamble of fire, fluid fuel irons were sold in U.S. rustic regions up through the Second Great War. In Kerala in India, consuming coconut shells were utilized rather than charcoal, as they have a comparable warming limit. This technique is still being used as a reinforcement gadget, since blackouts are incessant. Other box irons had warmed metal additions rather than hot coals. From the 17th 100 years, saturons or miserable irons, from Centre English, miserable, signifying, strong, utilized in English through the 1800s, started to be utilized. They were thick sections of solid metal, three-sided and with a handle, warmed in a fire or on an oven. These were additionally called level irons. A clothing specialist would utilize a group of strong irons that were warmed from a solitary source. As the iron at present being used chilled off, it very well may be immediately supplanted by a hot one. In the industrialized world, these plans have been supplanted by the electric iron, which utilizes resistive warming from an electric flow. The hot plate, called the sole plate, is made of aluminum or hardened steel cleaned to be basically as smooth as could really be expected. It is in some cases covered with a low erosion heat-safe plastic to decrease grinding underneath that of the metal plate. The warming component is constrained by an indoor regulator that turns the current on and off to keep up with the chose temperature. The innovation of the resistively warmed electric iron is credited to Henry W. Seeley of New York City in 1882. Around the same time an iron warmed by a carbon curve was presented in France, yet was too risky to be in any way fruitful. The early electric irons had no simple method for controlling their temperature, and the first thermostatically controlled electric iron showed up during the 1920s. Afterward, steam was utilized to press clothing. Credit for the creation of the steam iron goes to Thomas Synges. The principal economically accessible electric steam iron was presented in 1926 by a New York drying and cleaning organization, Eldec, however was not a business achievement. The patent for an electric steam iron and dampener was given to Max Skolnick of Chicago in 1934. In 1938, Skolnick allowed the Steam-O-Matic Company of New York the selective right to make steam electric irons. This was the primary steam iron to accomplish any level of notoriety, and drove the way to more boundless utilization of the electric steam iron during the 1940s and 1950s.